webinar, Bottomline on ROI, hosted by HRDQ-U and presented by Dr. Patti Phillips. Today's webinar will last approximately 1 hour. Before we begin, note you can submit any questions you have using the window chat area on your control panel. This is usually located in the upper right corner of your screen. We will answer any questions as they come in live with Patti at the end of the presentation or as a follow-up by email. My name is Sarah Schaefer, and I will be moderating today's webinar. I am the webinar coordinator for HRDQ, a publisher of research-based training solutions that improve the performance of individuals, teams, and organizations. A recognized expert in measurement and evaluation, Dr. Patti Phillips is President and CEO of the ROI Institute. She serves as faculty for the UN Systems Staff College, a professor of practice for the University of Southern Mississippi PhD in Human Capital Development Program, and a principal research fellow at the Conference Board. Patti is an award-winning author and editor of numerous books and articles, including The Bottom Line on ROI, Measuring ROI in Learning and Development, Global Case Studies, and Measuring the Success of Coaching. Thank you for joining us today, Patti.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank all of you for joining us today. It's great to be on another webcast with HRDQ, talking about my favorite topic, which is ROI. Today we're just going to give you an overview of the ROI methodology. It's the most documented approach to measuring and evaluating all types of human resources programs. That includes learning and development, any kind of performance improvement initiative, leadership development, and coaching. So we're going to introduce you to the process, and at the end of the session, open it up for questions. So write your questions down as we go through the slides, and then we'll have a conversation at the end. And I say that as if we are ready to go. Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, all right. Objectives for the session, we're just going to describe for you the 5 levels of evaluation, 6 types of data generated by the ROI methodology, the 10 steps in the process, and explain to you the importance of standards, or what we call our 12 guiding principles. And then we're going to talk about when to use ROI and when not to, and then have a few case studies. I'll just share with you how others have applied the process, and as I said, we'll end with a conversation around your questions. You know better than anyone what is happening in our world of human resource development, human capital development, HR, all the things that we're involved in, and that is our focus on accountability has changed. Historically, we looked at accountability in terms of feedback on surveys. We looked at case studies, and then we moved into HR indicators and benchmarking. Jack Fitzsimmons really opened the door to the benchmarking process for us. And then today we're looking at other techniques, the macro level studies, balanced scorecard, HR Profit Center, now the ROI methodology. And the reason this is happening is because the way we define value of programs, projects, and initiatives is changing. Value has to be balanced between quantitative, qualitative, financial, non-financial data. We look at things a little bit differently. We look not only at strategic issues, but also those tactical issues. And measurement and accountability occur at different time frames, and we look at those issues at multiple time frames. And we need data that satisfy all the stakeholders, because it's not just about accountability that's important. Measurement, evaluation, analytics is about ensuring that we are doing the right things by the resources we are given to help improve programs, projects, and initiatives. Okay, to do that, we have to satisfy the needs of all stakeholders, give people information that they need to make the decisions about those programs and allocate resources wisely. We need consistency in our approach. It doesn't mean that we're going to evaluate every program and project up to ROI, and it doesn't mean we will always use surveys, questionnaires, or focus groups. We're going to do what we need to do given the scope of the program and the intent of the evaluation, but we need some consistency in the process. When we're measuring and evaluating any type of program and project, the key is to be able to answer the questions, what are you doing, how are you doing it, and why are you doing it? So ensuring you have a method, a process, and a set of standards allows us to answer those questions in such a way that stakeholders get it. They understand what we're doing and what the results mean. That means we have to have those conservative standards. We have to have consistency. We want reliability, and we need to go credible sources of data. And in the end, the output of an evaluation needs to create a call for action. Your ROI on your measurement evaluation project is not in the numbers produced from the process, but it's in the actions taken. So this new definition of value is really driving our approaches these days in the area of measurement, evaluation, and analytics. And one reason ROI is so important is because if we look at what we spend on non-capital investment, it clearly outweighs what we spend on capital investment. So capital investment are the classic investments for which we show a return. That's your buildings and equipments and companies, those things that we can touch and feel. Non-capital investments are those softer investments. You have marketing, some technology and software is considered non-capital, but it's our people that really represent a big, a large quantity or a large amount of this 85%, huge expense. Okay, staff support, all the things that we invest in our people to allow our people, enable our people to do the jobs they need to do. And of course, issues around quality and different processes are considered non-capital. So you see here that a large amount of what we spend in an organization is on those non-capital investment, and that's why people investment is crying for this level of accountability, ROI. When we're talking about ROI, we are talking about the real one. Okay, it's not some ROI that has been made up for the learning industry or the HR industry. It's truly the ROI that is a standard metric in finance and accounting. It is the business metric. There are a variety of metrics that describe returns on investment, meaning financial returns on investment. The two that fit most in non-capital investments, such as learning and development, performance improvement, are the benefit cost ratio, that's your BCR, and the ROI, which is the return on investment percentage. These two measures are related of sorts. We get to the same way. It's just the output of the calculation is a little bit different. The benefit cost ratio, BCR, comes from a process or a theoretical basis which is called cost-benefit analysis. Cost-benefit analysis is grounded in welfare economics, public finance. It has been with us for centuries. It's not a new metric. It is a classic metric. To get here, all we have to do is take the program benefits, so the benefits of your programs, convert those programs to money, annualize the improvement in the business, in the benefits, and then compare it to the cost. So the numerator is the annual program benefits in monetary terms divided by the denominator, which is your program cost. That will get you one output. ROI, again, a related metric, comes from business and finance. ROI is reported typically as a percentage, and it represents the comparison of net program benefits to program cost. So the classic earnings divided by investment. Net program benefits compared to net program cost times 100 will get you the ROI percentage. Again, they're related, yet different. BCR is looking at your gross benefits. ROI is looking at the net benefits. So let's take an example. Let's say you have program benefits of $750,000 and program cost of $425,000. All I want you to do, I know you all brought a calculator because we are in an ROI session. All you have to do in the chat box, it's the question box, answer the equation, calculate the equation. What is the BCR and the ROI? And just type it in the box and let's see what you come up with, okay? Just give it a shot. We have to do one math problem in an ROI webinar. I'm going to give you just 1 minute. Excuse me. Let's see. Do we have it? Good job. Oh, go May. Got it. Very good. Okay, let's see what we got. So if you calculated, okay. Okay, Sarah, why am I not moving, Sarah? If you calculated 1.76 for your BCR, thank you, 1.76 to 1 for your BCR, 76% ROI for the ROI, you got it right. And so you see the difference. The BCR tells us for every $1 we invest, we get $1.76 back in benefits. That's your gross benefits. ROI represents net benefits. So what your ROI tells us is for every $1 we invest, we get the dollar back plus 76 cents. So that's 76 cents over and beyond the $1 investment. That's a 76% return on investment. And if you look closely, you can see the shortcut. You've got a BCR of 1.76. If you subtracted 1, that would give you 0.76 times 100 gives you the 76%. So your BCR represents gross benefits. ROI represents net benefits. Fundamentally, we're going to get there the same way. It's just the math is a little bit different. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about ROI. It's the real financial value of a program, project, or initiative. So now the question is sometimes, what is a good ROI? Okay, and the answer to that is you don't know unless you compare it to something else. We never know how good we are until we compare it to something else. And in this case, that something else is another or a target return on investment. So on the screen, you see 4 ways we can set those targets. One is to set that ROI value at the same level as other investments. So, for example, go to finance and accounting and ask them what kind of return are they getting for other capital investments. And they'll likely tell you 15, 17, 18%. You might want to raise the hurdle rate to 25%. Now, this is a rate that we use quite often, this 25%. Okay, and we do that when we're working with non-capital investment, especially investments that that enable people to do their job better. The reason we raise it is because we know if you have the right people in the right program for the right reason at the right time, and it works, it actually helps them change their behavior, you can get a positive ROI. You can get 25% easily. Okay, so that's one reason we use 25%. The other reason we use 25% is it sends a message, and that message is that we are so confident in our programming that we know that this ROI is going to be as good, if not better, than the ROIs you invest in other types of programs and projects. So we, mean the ROI Institute, when we're working with projects, we will often suggest a 25% ROI. Also, we've been involved in this so many years, and we have hundreds of case studies. Based on those case studies, we know that 25% is a meetable target. I mean, you can reach that target. Another way to set the target is to consider break-even. Now, for some projects, that may be all you want. Break-even or 0% ROI just tells you you didn't make money, you didn't lose money, you got it back. You got your investment back. This is not bad. We see this happen a lot in nonprofit organizations, some NGOs, and it also depends on the type of program you're working with. Even in nonprofits and NGOs, some programs are intended to drive more benefit than the cost, meaning they want to see an ROI beyond 0. But occasionally you'll have a program you just want to break even. Okay. And then finally, a technique to set your target is this last one, and that's set at client expectations. And that's where you go in and you have the conversation. That's where your good performance consulting skills come in. You have the conversation with the client and assess their need, the cost of their need, what their need is costing the organization, what your solution options might be, and then what kind of return would they expect given the solution and the nature of the problem or opportunity. And then just set the target that way. You're not forecasting ROI here, you're just asking the client for input so you can set a target that is the minimally acceptable return on investment. Forecasting ROI is a different issue. You're just trying to see what is minimally acceptable to the client. So those are some ways to help you set that ROI target, and you need that target. Without the target, you can't explain how you know you're good. Now, another question that comes up when setting the target is, well, what happens if we get this negative ROI? So what is positive? And type this in your chat box real quick. What is positive about a negative ROI? Some of you are saying absolutely nothing. But just think about it. What is good about a negative ROI? Type it in. What do you think? See if anyone's responding to us. Yeah, there you go. Like Jinx, yeah. You can only go up. If you're at the bottom, all you have is going up. But it gives you opportunity to improve, as Amy says. When we have a very positive ROI, if you have 250% ROI on a leadership program, the likelihood of you looking for improvement opportunities is pretty slim. I mean, that's, 250% is not bad unless you're expecting 300%. Okay, but if you have a negative ROI, negative 85% ROI on call center training, you're going to take a look at that. You're going to look for those opportunities to improve. So the value of a negative is in that opportunity for improvement. What we don't want you to do is be afraid of them. Because if you do have a negative ROI and your senior executive has asked you to demonstrate an ROI for a program, they probably already know it's negative. There's something telling them that they need to see what's happening with that program. So what you want to do is find the negative first. The idea is look for what's working, but look for what's not working so you can improve it. And sometimes that improvement is kill the program. There's some things that need to go. Most of the time what we find with a negative ROI is that either you didn't have enough data to explain to you the full benefits of the program, that happens, or something happens with that behavior change in that application. It's not transferring to you, so there's something happening within the organization system. And while some people will say, well, that's not our job, that's not our sphere of influence, we can't do anything about that. Yes, you can. You can influence that change by going to the supervisors who may be preventing the use of knowledge, skill, and information, having a conversation. Say, what can we do to partner to make this work better? So when we see negatives, it's oftentimes a system issue. Sometimes we just didn't get enough data to explain the full benefits of the program. But you know what? Sometimes programs just don't work. And those are the kind of things that we want to see. You want to know that first before the senior executive does. So there's a lot of positive that comes from the negative. We're not suggesting you strive for negative. We're just suggesting go ahead and look for it. And don't be afraid of it. Just be prepared to take action if you find it. So the question now is, okay, how do we make this work? Okay, to make ROI work, you want a system. It's a process. Okay, and that system includes 5 components. The first component is that evaluation framework. A framework is the way in which you categorize the data you're reporting. A framework gives you logic, and it helps ensure that you're addressing the issues important to all stakeholders. Then we need a process model. We like process models. Process models help us explain what we are going to do to evaluate the program, and then once we have the data, they help us explain what we did. I think it was W. Edwards Deming who said, if you can't explain what you do as a process, you don't know what you're doing. Okay, that's what process models allow us to do, explain what we're doing and what we did once it's done. The next piece is operating standards and philosophy. That's what we call 12 guiding principles. You need standards. Standards ensure you implement your process routinely. It doesn't mean you're going to use the same data collection technique and the same type of analysis for every project every time. It means you've got guidance on what you do given your target audience, given your sources of data, given the nature of the data that you're collecting. They're your operating standards. They ensure reliable implementation of the process so that when you report your data in your framework, the data are perceived as credible. Now, the process or the framework, the process, and the standards are good theory, but they are only theory until we put it into practice, and that's case applications in practice. And we go to great lengths to publish as many case studies as we can because we want people to see how others are applying the process into what types of programs. So you have to put it to use. This fourth piece, case application and practice, represents the impact and ROI studies that you do. So you may do 5 ROI studies in a year, 10 impact studies in a year, 25 application or level 3 studies in a year. That's what this piece represents, is the practice or the application of the process and the standards. Okay. But over time, what this becomes is the activity of evaluating programs. Just like learning and development, performance improvement activities, if you do too much of it and you report how busy you are with it, someone is going to say it is a cost, let's cut it. Activities represent costs, costs get cut. It's the results that reflect an investment. Investments are allocated. That is true for your programs. It is also true for your evaluation. So right here in this fourth piece of the puzzle is critical because it demonstrates you're applying the framework, the process, and the standards. You're conducting evaluations. But over time, if you're doing too much of this and you're not explaining the benefit of your doing it, they're going to look at evaluation as a cost and they're going to start targeting that for cuts. That brings us to this middle piece, implementation. Implementation represents the piece of the process that ensures as you're collecting data through your evaluation process, you are actually doing something with it to make change and improvement within the organization. To do that, people have to understand the process. They have to know what the data mean. They have to recognize the value of the standards and how to use the standards. They need to know what decisions they can make given the data at hand. They need to know what risks are associated with making decisions given the data at hand. So this implementation piece is all about capability building. It's about teaching others. It's everything that you need to do to ensure that once you have these data, you can put them to use to make good decisions. Measurement and evaluation and analytics are not about data. They're about the information that comes from the data. And when we use that information, that's when we can see an ROI on your ROI process. So we need these pieces of the puzzle to come together to give you a really robust measurement and evaluation practice, and that's how we make ROI work. Now we're going to take a quick look at the different pieces, and then we'll share with you a couple of case studies and open it up for your questions, see what's on your mind when it comes to this. When we're talking about a framework is just the way in which we categorize data. That's all a framework is. So many of you know Balanced Scorecard. Okay. This is the framework that we've used, and we've used since the 1970s. Very quick history that I'm sure many of you are already familiar with. In the 1950s, Don Kirkpatrick did his dissertation. The output of his dissertation was 4 steps to training evaluation. In the early 1970s, ASTD published a series of articles around his 4 steps. There were no case studies, there was not a clear process, there were no standards, but there were the 4 steps in the articles that came out of this research. In early 1970s, Jack Phillips was working for Lockheed, now Lockheed Martin. He was working there in the training space, and his executive asked him to do an ROI study to show the ROI, financial ROI, on a cooperative education program. He did that, and when he did that, he went to the only thing that was out there that really had a sound logic behind it, and that was 4 steps to training evaluation. Jack took the 4 steps and he incorporated into that the theory of cost-benefit analysis, which gets us to level 5, ROI. He then built the model and the standards that are now standard practice in many organizations around the world. So what you see here is the work of research that started in the 1950s with 4 steps, and beginning in the 1970s that Jack took and built along the way. In 1983, Jack wrote the first handbook of training, evaluation, and measurement methods published in the U.S. That is the book that really put this concept of the 5 levels in ROI and cost-benefit analysis on the map. And it was in 1994 that Don wrote his book, 4 Levels of Training Evaluation. In 1994, Jack also introduced all of these concepts to the HR community in his book, Accountability for Human Resource Management. And then over those decades, 70s, 80s, and 90s, as well as up till today, together we've published and authored a variety of other books on the process as well. So this is really the framework that has become standard in most learning and development and HR functions. There are a variety of other frameworks out there, but this is really the one that's most documented. And what it does for us, it allows us to categorize data in a logical way. That logic is based on theory of change, whereas you invest in an initiative, a logical flow of outputs occur. People react to that investment. That reaction tells us the extent to which, not so much they like what's going on, that they like the program. It's more about the extent to which they're bought into it. Research over the years has shown us there are 5 critical measures that give us some predictive value, some way of understanding the extent or the potential success people will have in applying what they learn in a program. Those measures are measures of relevance, importance, intent to use, amount of new information, and recommendations to others. Those are 5 key measures that give you some predictive value in terms of the likelihood people will apply what they learn. They are also measures that are categorized as participant buy-in. That's B-U-Y-I-N, buy-in, meaning people are willing to do what you want them to do. Other measures of success at this level are measures around the process of delivering the content, the facilitator contribution to that, the courseware, whatever it is you're working with, materials and the content, all of that. Those are important, and they enable buy-in. But what we're looking for here is as we invest in a program, which is level 0, that represents investment, that initial measure of success is the willingness of people to do what we want them to do, the buy-in. Okay. Once we know people are bought in, the next question is, okay, they're willing to do it, but can they do it? That's your level 2 learning. Learning occurs in everything that we do, whether it's a training program, a leadership program, a coaching program, a policy change, whatever it is, there's knowledge to be had. People have to know what it is we want them to do with what they now know. Okay, so we have to capture learning. We invest in the program at level 0. We capture data at the reaction level to see if people are willing to do what we want them to do, and level 2 if they're able to do it. But where it really gets interesting is in the follow-up, because it doesn't matter what people know. It's what people do with what they know that matters. You know, there's that adage out there that knowledge is power. Knowledge isn't powerful. It's what people do with knowledge that makes it powerful. That's what's happening here at level 3. We want to know the extent to which people are doing what we want them to do. So at level 3, we're going to follow up to see if people are actually changing their behavior or if they're applying the 5 steps with every customer, whatever that application looks like. The other thing here at level 3 is the importance of that transfer of learning. We want to evaluate here the extent to which the system is supporting the transfer. So we capture barriers and enablers associated with people applying the knowledge, skill, and information that they want. We want to know here that the organization culture, the organization system is supporting transfer, because if people don't apply knowledge, skill, and information, you are not going to get impact. Business measures may improve, but it has nothing to do with your program. So we have to have success here in order to link it to what is level 4, business impact. So at level 4, we're really answering the so what of level 3. Level 3 is telling us people are applying what they know. Level 4 is answering, okay, so what are they doing? As a result of that, what is happening? How is it impacting output quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, and innovation? So we answer the so what question at level 4. That's so what in terms of application. So what people are applying, what they learn, how's it improving the business. We also answer a question at level 4, and that is how do we know it's the program that caused the improvement that you claim? That's your isolation technique. And that is what is inherently meant by impact. We're connecting the improvement in business measures directly to the program. Your theory of change does that anyway. Our chain of impact is going to do that anyway. It provides evidence. But what we're doing here is demonstrating a greater level of proof. We want to clearly connect it. We're saying, given the improvement in the business measures, here's how much is due to the program investment versus everything else going on. Then to get to ROI, we're bringing in a new theory. That theory is cost-benefit analysis. We convert our impact measures to money. We compare them to the cost. We calculate the ROI. So your framework is that logic that connects all the different types of measures that matter to different stakeholders. Level 0, again, is your investment. How many people attend the training? How much do we spend per person on training? Or whatever that investment is. We need that information. That information represents investment, but if we don't balance it with results, it's going to reflect a cost. Costs get cut. So we're going to balance that with other measures. We need data around reaction. We need that. Your program designers and developers need that information. They can use that information to improve it. We need learning data. We need that. Program designers, developers, facilitators want to know, do people get it? We as evaluators and program owners also need to know people's willingness and ability to do what we want them to do, because if they're not willing and they're not able, yet you've spent a lot of money on a program, you now have a problem because the likelihood of them applying it is pretty weak. So we need these data. Okay. We also need application data for many programs because these answer the question of the so what. So what they know it, what are they doing with it? And for many programs, we need the impact data because the impact data answer the so what question to applications. So what they're applying it. How's it improving output quality, cost, time? Okay. And then for many programs, we need the ROI data because it's through ROI that we can compare the benefits of our program to the cost in one metric. And that's your BCR, your ROI. The framework sets the stage for all of it. Is the way we categorize data to ensure we have the information all stakeholders need, that we can improve the programs and projects, and that we can really demonstrate a link between investment and outcomes. So that's your framework. And then to ensure we get to these data credibly and reliably, we need a process. The process is a 10-step process model. And it all begins with objectives. So the first step in the process are the objectives. The objectives represent that framework. So we're going to have objectives at all levels. Objectives are really one of the most important elements of the entire programming process. Your objectives for your programs represent the measures you're going to take during the evaluation, but they are also the blueprint for program design. So the stronger you can get, the better you can get at developing objectives, the better the program and the easier the evaluation. And that's why it's the first step in the process. It always begins with the objectives. We develop the objectives, we capture our baseline data, we plan our work, and then we're going to work our plan. This first phase is all about evaluation planning. We collect our level 2 data, level 1 and 2 data using different techniques. We use end-of-course questionnaires, you can use tests, you can use role plays, you can use all types of assessments, interviews and focus groups if you need to. We collect these data during the program because that's when we need them. They're easier to collect because people are available, but we need them because here we're going to look to see if people are willing and able to do what we want them to do. Sometime after the program and people are using the knowledge, skill, and information routinely, we are going to collect our level 3 and 4 data. Timing to collect these measures depends on scope of the program, the type of measures, how long before people are using the knowledge, skill, and information routinely, when do stakeholders need it. That's the timing. So the best timing just depends on what the program is and what measures you're trying to drive. To collect your level 3 and 4 data, we use a variety of techniques. We use surveys, questionnaires, focus groups, interviews, observation. We use action planning, performance contracting, and performance monitoring at level 4. Performance monitoring is where you just go into a system and get the data. So a variety of ways. How you decide which technique to use depends on cost, convenience, culture, how much time it's going to take participants, how much time it's going to take anyone else responding to the data collection process. We are always balancing accuracy and cost. Sometimes we will use multiple techniques to collect our data. We may use a self-administered questionnaire and supplement that with interviews or focus groups. When we do that, depends on the nature of the program, the scope of the program, the purpose of the evaluation, and the risk associated with the decisions being made based on the output of the evaluation. Sources of data at level 3 and 4 get down to who is the most credible. At level 3, we will go to the participants at level 3 and often supplement it with another source. But we rarely, if ever, leave out the participants at level 3 because no one knows better about what they do with what they know than the person doing it. And for certain, no one knows better about the barriers and enablers to their doing it than the person doing it. So at level 3, one of your most credible sources is always the participants, and then you might want to supplement it. In terms of most credible source at level 4, if you have data in the system, let's get it from the system. Let's use performance records to get them. Otherwise, you have to determine in partnership with the client who knows best about the impact measures. So we have a process. It begins with objectives. We collect our baseline data. We collect level 1 and 2 data during the program, level 3 and 4 data sometime after the program when people are using knowledge, skill, and information on a routine basis. Now, the fun in all this is in the data analysis, and that begins with your isolation step. There are a variety of ways in which we can isolate the impact of program. The classic approach to showing that cause and effect relationship is control group, getting an experimental group, a control group, comparing the output of the two groups. That's classic. And for many research, that is the only way you can show a causal relationship. The question is, can you set it up? And can you set it up in such a way that you have, in fact, controlled for all the factors that could influence improvement in the measure? Much of the time you can't. We use control groups in all the years that Jack and I have been working with this process and working with clients. About 35-36% of the time we use control group. So it can be done. It just can't be done every time. Just because you can't use control group doesn't mean we're going to skip this step. This is the step that answers the question, how do you know it's your program that caused the result? So if you can't use control group, you might consider using trendline analysis. Trendline analysis is a good technique. If you can't use trendline analysis, look at some of the forecasting approaches available to you. Today in the world of analytics, we're trying to make linkages with all types of measures. So there may be some measures that you can show that causal connection using your statistics. If you can't do that, use the estimation process. Anytime we use estimates to isolate the effects of the program, we always adjust the estimates for error. So you're making a very conservative estimate, but it's a process. It's an estimate based on a process, so you have some reliability and some credibility with that process. But in the ideal world, use control groups. This step, isolate the effects of the program, is that critical step, that critical question that is being asked more frequently than any other question, and that is, how do you know? How do you know it is your program that caused it? It doesn't mean we're isolationist. It doesn't mean we're isolating our learning and development or HR from the rest of the world. No, we're working in partnership with them. But what it does mean is that we want to make sure that we are credibly and reliably reporting our contribution to improvement in measures. That's what this step does. If you stopped your evaluation right here at this step, isolation, you would have a very good impact study, but you would not have ROI. And the interesting thing is that getting to ROI from here is not that hard. The hard part is getting here to the connection to business. The rest of it's pretty easy. All you have to do is convert your business impact measures to money. There are a variety of ways to do that. There are standard values, historical cost, input, internal, external experts. There's databases out there. If you have the luxury of doing a lot of analysis, you can make connections using your statistics, connecting soft data to hard measures, then converting those to money. And you can use the estimation process here as well. So there are a lot of ways we can convert measures to money. For some measures, you're going to choose not to. You're going to decide we're not going to convert that measure to money. If that's the case, then we record it as an intangible benefit. It doesn't mean it's not an important benefit. It just means you made a conscious decision not to convert it to money. When we want to go to ROI, we have to bring in the cost of the program. So now we compare the monetary benefits to the cost. You've already gone through that calculation. You saw how easy that is. And then you just report your story. So it's 5 levels of evaluation, which represents that chain of impact, that theory of change that occurs as people go through implement a program, project, or initiative. And then we're going to execute a 10-step process to ensure the data that we collect and report using that framework are credible and reliable, and it's all grounded on in a set of standards, what we call 12 guiding principles, and this ensures reliability of the entire process. Our standards ensure that we are conservative and we are credible and that we collect all the data we need to answer any question asked about a program or process. We always report the complete story of program success. When we evaluate to ROI, we're going to collect data at the lower levels. But when we evaluate to ROI, we're not going to spend so many resources on the lower levels. We're going to focus our resource investment on the higher levels of evaluation. That's guiding principle 2. We always get the most credible sources of data, and if we have a choice between measures, we always go the most conservative route, okay, because it can always be better. We always isolate the effects for the program. We have to be able to answer the question, how do you know it's the program? And on guiding principle number 6, that's our no data, no improvement guiding principle. We have that because we want to reinforce that we're not making assertions for non-respondents. We're not making inference for those who don't provide us data. We only report benefits for those who give us data around the benefits. Anytime we use estimates, we adjust for error in the estimates, just like you do with any type of survey data, and we throw out extreme data and unsupported claims. We're not going to skew the data in our favor because you have this one outlier. We're going to throw the outlier out. We use first-year benefits for short-term programs. Now, this one confuses some people because they think that we only look at 1 year all the time. We only consider first-year benefits for short-term programs because the likelihood of a shorter-term program, a 3-week program, a 4-week program, having benefits in years 2, years 3, and year 4 is pretty slim. And so you don't want to inflate your ROI for a short-term program just for the sake of having a positive ROI because you've made greater assumption then. Longer-term initiatives are likely to have benefit in years 2 and years 3. If that's the case, then we'll assume the benefits for those future years. The shorter term initiatives, we're not going to. Otherwise, you're overstating your ROI, and we don't want to do that. We include our fully loaded costs, guiding principle 10, and we always report the intangible benefits. Anytime we have ROI, we report those intangibles, and we always tell the story. We communicate results to stakeholders. We will work in organizations who have done a phenomenal job collecting, analyzing data, but they're not telling anyone. Folks, evaluation without communication is a worthless endeavor. Bottom line, you're wasting time, money, and effort. So you've got to communicate results and do something with the data. In the end, we have that complete story of program success. Here's what we invested. Here's what people thought about it. Here's what they learned and what they did with what they learned. As a result, we've improved output quality, cost, time, customer satisfaction, job satisfaction, work habits, innovation, and we know that improvement is due to our program because we isolate the effects of the program. When we convert benefits to money compared to the cost, we calculate this ROI, and oh, by the way, look at all the intangibles. Complete story of success. If you have a 250% ROI, someone's going to say, so Martin, how'd you do that? Well, without the rest of these data, Martin cannot tell what they did to get there. On the other hand, if you have a negative 85% ROI, someone's going to ask, well, Martin, what'd you do to get there? Without the other data, Martin can't tell them. So the importance of these lower levels is obvious to many, and that is without these data, you can't explain fully how you get to the ROI you get to. And you sure can't explain how to improve it when you get less than desired. So that's the chain of impact. So what we end up having is a 5-level framework, a 10-step process, 12 guiding principles that generate 6 types of data and tell the complete story of program success. The good news for everyone is that we only evaluate so many programs to ROI. We don't have to do it for every program. ROI and impact analysis are targeting big programs, expensive programs, programs that have a long life cycle, highly visible programs, programs where you have a very large target audience. If we think Pareto principle or 80-20 rule, 20% of the programs are driving 80% of the business. Those 20% are your candidates for impact and ROI. We look about 10 to 20% of programs, if we look at the typical organization, 10 to 20% of programs are evaluated to impact, 5 to 10% evaluated to ROI. For many organizations, if they take an evaluation to impact, they go ahead and take it to ROI because it's not that hard to make it to that next level. There are some organizations where they have taken out, they've removed all of the nice-to-have type programming, and they are only offering programs that drive business impact. I was just with a group the other day, 80% of their programs they evaluate to ROI. But that is because they have fewer programs than in the past, and their programs are really strategic in nature. For the most part, if you're a large organization, 5 to 10% ROI, 10 to 20 impact, is probably a good number to peg. This is a quick example. We're going to open it up for questions. Quick example of a case study in one of our case study books. John Piccolo conducted this case study with a healthcare organization. It was a Lean Six Sigma training, and actually in the case study he reported on 3 projects. One of the projects was dressing change delays with their patients, okay? And so by reducing delays, they were ultimately improving their margin on sales. He used control group for the isolation technique and backed it up with estimation process. And the data conversion technique was a standard value, which is profit margin on sales. And the ROI was 161. So he was happy with that result. This is another program. This is an English as a second language program that is offered online. The impact was all around time savings. The estimation process was the isolation technique, and standard value of time was used. Now, if you're working with a program that drives time savings, you do want to be careful because you have to account for what happens with the time saved. We don't want to save time and then give more people time off. That doesn't contribute. So you have to look at what are we doing with the time, how much of it is used productively versus otherwise. So this was an interesting case study on an online program. Executive coaching is a big topic these days. It's always been a big topic, but in the ROI world it's a huge topic because people just wonder, what are we really getting for this coaching initiative? And so this is one that was done with a beverage company. And clearly, I mean, it's right there on the screen for you, beverage company in Italy. Executive coaching, a tool that is used very frequently in coaching is action planning. Action planning for coaching and leadership development can be very powerful on a number of fronts, and one of those is getting to business impact measures that matter to the people involved in the program and then driving that to ROI so you see what happened in this case. And then the last one, this is coming out of Johannesburg Transnet. This is another coaching program, and she too used action planning as part of her process. Isolation and data conversion were both estimates from the key data sources. Her business impact measure you see there is beat rate, which is an efficiency measure in her organization, and then sales targets. So those are some examples of the application. Here's one other, those of you who work in more of a governmental setting. This is an organization, and what they were trying to do is really localize their service providers, the people out in the field working with their clients. And so they were trying to build capability in casework management for the indigenous folks in Australia. Business impact was retention of their staff, and then also they wanted to see that their Aboriginal staff is being promoted into management roles. Very interesting case study. Their ROI is negative, but they were okay with that. And this is a great example of the benefits of a negative. They were really okay with that because they were getting so much out of the program. They knew they could make some adjustments in the programming that they could improve that ROI over the future, but given what they were seeing at the time, the negative ROI didn't hurt them. They were very happy with where it's going. It was just a matter of adjusting. Okay, why it works, again, everything that we've already talked about is a solid process. It's been vetted by chief financial officers, researchers, academicians. More important, practitioners are using it. Jack and I work in about 60 countries, Jack and I and our team of consultants. Very flexible. Any type of program or project can be evaluated using the methodology. Some of our favorite work is in non-governmental work where we're actually using it to evaluate humanitarian projects. So it gives you a balanced set of measures and a good story in the end, driving outputs that matter to all stakeholders. Here's some things you can do to get started. First, assess your readiness for ROI. An ideal approach, I was just having a conversation today with someone, the ideal approach is taking a proactive approach and let implementation of the process grow organically. That means that you're doing it on your own. You're seeing ROI and measurement and evaluation as a strategic tool from your view, and you do it without worrying about the pressure from the top. Where we sometimes get in trouble is we have a shift change at the top of the organization, and you have new executives come in and they start putting the pressure on you to do it. That's when we get in a hurry, we get stressed, we make bad decisions. So best time to do it is before the pressure comes, because it's a change process in and of itself. It's not something that's going to pay off overnight. The ROI on the ROI process is in how you use the data and the changes that occur from it. So to really get a payoff on measurement, you need a longer term, and then to demonstrate the value of getting value from the individual programs, you need some time as well. So take a look at where you are with the process and then come up with a strategy to move forward. Look at your stakeholders and their data needs. With your team this afternoon or tomorrow at lunch, look at all the programs that you offer and identify the stakeholders who have a vested interest in those programs. Those are the people funding the program, participants, facilitators, designers, developers, everyone who has a vested interest. And then identify what are the data that they need to make decisions about the program. And then what data are we giving them and where are the gaps? And then start developing your strategy to close those gaps. Consider why you want an evaluation practice. You know, if you're not going to use it to do the business of the business, that's okay. Just be clear on why you're doing it. Purpose is really key. And then that's this week, later this week or next week, look at all of your programs. What do you have that are big, expensive programs that can be candidates for ROI? And then start developing some capability around the process. And of course, the team here at HRDQ has just the tool for you to develop that capability. And here it is. Oh, by the way, what we have here is this is the first time we've ever done this, is actually offer through a publisher, HRDQ, not only the book, Bottomline on ROI, which, by the way, won an award for being, it won an award. No one, in 2002, our first edition won an award from ISPI. No one said this, but this is our assumption, that it probably won the award for being the shortest book ever written on ROI. But brief description what ROI is, what it is not, how to get started. But the first time we've ever offered our content for sale, so what you can get here at HRDQ is the set. It's the Bottomline on ROI, our one-day workshop. It's the participant guide, the book, and then also a facilitator guide. So that's my commercial. So that is ROI and the methodology. And we have a few minutes for questions. What questions might you have? And Sarah?
Hi, Patty. Okay, are you ready for questions?
I'm ready for questions, yes.
All right, great. Let's see. All right, it looks like they're coming in right now. Our first question is from Liz, and she asked, our organization doesn't have a formal ROI program. What is the best way to get started?
Okay, so there's not really a formal measurement practice. Is that what I'm hearing right? When you say ROI program, I'm assuming you mean the measurement practice.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, to get started, first thing is, the good news is you don't have to. We know a lot of organizations, they have one person training, one person evaluation, and that one person is the same person. So you don't have to have a large group to do it. The best way to get started is what I mentioned on that previous slide is, start looking at what you're facing. And I don't know, let me see if I can get back to that. Start looking at where you are in terms of readiness. So what type of measurement are you doing, if any? What is it stakeholders need to make decisions about your programs? What are people asking for? And I would just take it on yourself, or if you have someone on your team, to learn the methodology, learn about measurement and evaluation, and you can always spread accountability around. There are a lot of organizations who don't have formal measurement practices. They make it part of what everyone does on the team. Now, I know it's frightening to some people because they don't have anything to do with it, but there are a lot of components of the process that are not technically difficult. There's just things to do. So I would just take a look at what you have ahead of you and identify someone or a couple of people who may be the leaders of your team. And then once you understand what's required of the ROI process, then you can share it with others. It's going to spread the work a little bit. I don't know if that helps, but that's how we've seen a lot of organizations do it, because many don't have isolated evaluation teams. We don't have that luxury very often.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And our next question is actually from Tim, and he asks, what happens if there is a negative ROI?
Yeah. As I was saying earlier, if there's a negative ROI, well, of course, just in reality, it really just depends on how you're presented. First, you never want your client to be surprised. So if you think it's about to be negative, have a conversation with the client. But if you have a negative ROI, the beauty of it is go back and look at what happened. If it's negative because you didn't get enough data, you had 100 people go through the program and only 25 provided benefits of the program, you may likely have a negative ROI. That means you don't have enough benefit to outweigh the cost. But if that's because you didn't get enough data, change your strategy for getting data back from people. If it's negative because the program didn't work, change the program. We see negatives occur because people have the wrong people in the room. And that happens more frequently than we want. But we think we have a great solution, but we really didn't analyze the front end, so we have the wrong solution for the people addressing an entirely different program or problem. What we find, this is why we started moving, about 10 years ago, started moving more into the needs assessment space than we had in the past, is because through the evaluation work we found that the breakdown is on the front end. So you might take a look at your front end process. But negative ROIs, don't fear them. Embrace them, because they're out there. We have them. Everyone has them. It's just, let's go look for them and then start making change.
Okay, great. And I think we have time for one more question. And this question is from Kate, and she asks, how often should you try to calculate the continuing benefit of the training?
Yeah. You know what? That's a great question, and it depends. Much of the time your study is going to be a one-shot kind of check, to see, pulse check. We want to see how we're doing and whether we want to continue it based on that. A longer-term program, though, or a program that you expect long-term benefit, you might want to check it periodically. If it's a 4-week program and you want to see an ROI in 3 weeks, and at that point in time, or 3 months, not 3 weeks, 3 months, you want to check the ROI to make a decision, that's your stopping point. But for example, we have a program, it's a leadership program. We've been working with this client for several years, and we are doing a pulse check about every quarter. Now, the pulse check is on application. The impact data come after a year. So they go into this leadership program, and they learn something new, and they do all the assessments. They meet in person for a week. They go back to the field, apply what they learned. They come back for another week. When they come back at that second meeting, we collect data about how they used what they learned the first week, and then we capture barriers and enablers. Then they carry on with the learning. They go back to the field for 3 months. They come back for a week. At that point in time, we take another level of measurement. The ROI we're going to capture, or every year we capture at the 3 months after the end of the year. So you've got 4 quarters worth of data, then you let 1 more quarter go, and that's when we capture business impact, and we do that twice for each group. So it runs a full 2 years. It's a big program. So for some programs, you do want to go in multiple times. So really, bottom line to that question is it really depends on what is the program. But a lot of times you'll see a program's not paying off because you go in too early to collect the data, and it could be your business impact measures haven't had a chance to improve, but you didn't know that in your planning stage. So you might say 3 months after the program, we're going to see if errors go down or rejects go down. Well, you haven't had time for it to take it. So if you have a negative, back to the negative, if you have a negative ROI at that time, or the improvement in the business measures has not occurred at that time, negotiate an extension on the time, and let's see if it improves a little bit later. The struggle there is, or the challenge there is, if you wait too long after the program to start collecting data, you will have a harder time isolating the improvement to the program. So again, it gets back to scope of program, scope of evaluation, stakeholder needs.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Patti, for sharing your expertise with us today.
Were there any other questions? I know people have to go, but there are some people who are still on, so I don't want to, if they have a question, I don't want to hold you up, but if you have a burning issue.
We can, if we do not answer their questions right now, they will receive an email response later on next week.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, sounds good. Okay, so you'll send me the questions and then we'll respond, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, very good. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us today, and hopefully we gave you some insights that you can use.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.